everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. You have two hosts, as always. I'm one of them. I'm Noor Kyle, along with...
The other one of them, Mushtaq Ali.
And here we are. We do this every week, almost without fail, depending on power outages, weather, health status in terms of plague, all that stuff. And you can find us on YouTube on the replay if you're not able to join us live. And we have several people joining us live, including a new face who we're happy to have here. And thank you for joining us. So, do we have any announcements? I believe we have a big one.
We have a big announcement, I'm sure. What is it?
Well, as most of you already know, we are running a retreat starting on September 30th. So for us, that's 3 days from now. And we will be sending out a packet tomorrow that will kind of serve as our manual / text for the purpose of the retreat. And this will be 30 days. We are going to be doing it. Mushtaq and I are going to be doing it. And anyone who is interested in participating just needs to follow the link that we are going to share in our description. It'll have all the information. This is donation-based, so there's no registration fee, but we do appreciate whatever support you're able to offer. We're saying anywhere from $10 to $10,000. Yeah. Anything helps. We want to keep the school running. We want to keep our lights on, and we want to keep being able to offer this content for anyone who's interested in it, because we've heard from people who are getting a lot of benefit from the work that we do, and that means a lot to us. So we want to keep going.
Yeah.
And thank you to those folks who have let us know.
And we must also say, please excuse the casual dress. It is in the high 90s here right now. It is really, really hot. And Northern California decided that it wants to burn up again. So there is a massive fire north and east of us. What you gonna do?
Yeah, the saga continues. So, do we have any other advertisements or notices?
Just a little thought for people who are or are not or are thinking about doing the retreat with us. I've gotten several questions like, is this forbidden? And can I not do this? And the answer is, to all of these questions, nothing is forbidden. You are all adults. You are all capable of making choices for yourself. Everything that we tell you on the handout that we're giving you is our suggestion and our description of how we do it. You are welcome to join into any and all of it you want. There is no penalty for not doing everything we tell you. Just bear that in mind.
Yep. And for people who have questions and stuff, you can always get in touch with us. You can email us at our email, which is also going to be listed in the description, info@ninesidedcircle.com. Or if you know where to find us on Facebook, you can message us at our Nine-Sided Circle Facebook page. Just ask us your questions. We don't mind, and we're happy to help.
Send carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Yep. So there's that. We will have, I think, 5 group sessions during the retreat. 4, 5? I think 5.
I think 5, yeah.
Yep. Including a wrap up. And those will be on Saturday evenings for those of us who are in North America.
Yeah. And you don't have to make them. It's nice if you do.
Yeah.
But we're available 24/7 by email and message. So if you can't make them, you can still ask us questions or give us feedback or tell us that we're crazy or how did you think of eating like this? Are you nuts? That's one that I get from time to time. So it's all good.
Oh, just to check, will the Saturday evening things be recorded so they can be picked up later?
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I had some thoughts about that, but I think we are going to do that. Yes, Nancy. Yep. I think that's probably better for everybody.
Yep.
So that's that.
All right. What are we going
And,
to talk about tonight, Noor?
well, tonight we wanted to talk about surprise. Why did we want to talk about surprise? Yes. Being surprised.
Surprise. Surprise is a very high state of consciousness. Do you know why? Can anybody give me a guess?
It takes you out of your usual thinking.
That's part of it. Yeah, surprise will definitely can get you out of your usual thinking. Something more fundamental than that. Nope. Well, let me tell you, my answer. My answer is not the true answer, it's just my answer. But this is my answer, which is surprise puts you in the position of knowing that you don't know. Oh my God, that's a pattern interrupt. Now, the thing is, your worldview is held together by nothing more than a pattern of memory in your brain. That's it. All of that stuff that you remember having happened yesterday, that's not real. It is just part of your brain firing. Whatever happened yesterday, assuming that there ever was a yesterday, and we can never even know that. If you remember, I did a talk on time a while back and on the present moment, and scientists have determined that the present moment is about 1/3 of a second for most people. So that's the slice of time that we're existing in right now. If you are aware right now of being here, listening to me talk, being in your room, being on Zoom, this is the present moment. And then this is the present moment. And you have a memory now of that last present moment. And that memory is not real. So we hold the universe together with these memories that we carry around. And we are, as a rule, very, very attached to them. You can get people very upset by telling them this.
So why is that? Why might
Because
someone get
people want to
upset?
think that they actually have a universe and continuity and stuff, and they don't. But the joy of this is if you can let go of that for even a moment and be in a state of surprise going, oh, the universe is new. Oh, the universe is new. The universe is new. In this moment, the universe is new. There's a great quote. Those of you who know me know that I absolutely love Terry Pratchett. Sir Terry Pratchett, one of the most brilliant writers of the 20th and 21st century. And I'm pulling this quote up here. Therefore he understood, there is no truth, no past. There is in truth no past, only a memory of the past. Blink your eyes, and the world that you see next did not exist when you closed them. Think about that. Blink your eyes, and the world that you remember existing when you close them does not exist when you open them. It just goes into memory. You have no connection to it. You can have people sort of agree with you about, oh, this happened in the past. You go to your mother and she says, yeah, I remember you doing that. But one of the things we know from people who are interested in evidence and accounts and such is that no two people gave the same account of the same incident. It's not even possible, because if nothing else, you're standing in two different places. There is no way to verify what you remember. And there's a lot of people who are caught up in having to heal their past get really upset about this, because this implies that you have no past to heal. Maybe, maybe not. You still have to let go of all of those traumatic thoughts, whatever is going on. But think about it. You, I, Noor, maybe not Ilmar, but all the rest of us are holding our universe together by constantly reaccounting our past to us. These things happened to me. These things matter. And the fact is, they don't matter. They are clever stories that we tell each other and ourselves for entertainment. And it's very, very difficult to get people to let go of this. So this is the topic of our discussion tonight. Surprise is very, very important because it is the gateway to the state of not knowing. One of my early teachers said to me back probably 1962 or 72 or 73, somewhere around in there, he said, "Boy, being in a state of not knowing is a very, very high state. If you can get into a state of not knowing, you're almost enlightened. So cultivate that." And because I was young and stupid, I did not understand what he was talking about for probably years. And then one day I understood, and he was right. Because if I can be in a state of not knowing, that means I have freed myself from the illusion of my past. Think about the illusion of your past and the holds that it has on each and every one of us. My mommy was mean to me. I didn't get a pony. I am traumatized for life from that, whatever. And yes, there are other things that are horrendous memories that some people have. And yet, those memories exist only in their heads. So, what do we do with this?
Well, I have a question. When you first heard that from your teacher, what assumptions were you potentially making about what he had said? Do you
Well,
remember?
my first assumption, I think, and you have to realize that this was a long time ago. I was in my
Yeah,
20s at the time.
right, yeah.
So it's been a week or two. And I think that what I thought was, oh, he wants me to be ignorant. And that was not the case. I was actually a little bit leery of it because I was still under the illusion that my memories mattered as if they were real. So that was my basic thought at the time, and that's evolved over the decades.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Do we
Like so many.
something in the text?
Oh, I just posted the quote.
Oh, okay.
So, Cherie, what does it mean for you, do you think, to cultivate surprise? Are you having trouble? Do you want me to unmute you?
Or anybody else if Cherie is not
Yeah.
ready to come up with an answer or a thought. Ilmar, help me out here.
I guess a couple of things puzzle me, but one of the things that puzzles me, I mean, obviously, you're right about, you know, the present time and the memories of it. But I mean, what about the body? I mean, the body seems to carry things forward. Like, you know, in your case, you're a swordsman, you know, and you're training your body, and there's certain skills that the body embodies in a sense and brings forward to your present time so you can use it, you know, to attack whoever the hell you want to attack. And similarly with traumas. I mean, people keep saying that, you know, traumas are in some sense embedded in your body and in that sense are being carried forward into the present time. And I wonder what your thoughts are.
Trauma is not being embedded in your body. The memory of a trauma is
Exactly,
being
you know, sure.
in your body. It's a different thing.
Yeah, I agree. But, you know, still the question arises, you know, your body is carrying forward certain skills, if you want, certain memories of traumas or certain responses and stuff like that. And that seems to be not a matter of memory so much as kind of the environment you're living in almost, you know, that's being carried forward.
It's only in the environment that you're living in if it's happening right now.
Right, but you're, you know, I mean, let's say you're doing one of your sword fights, right? I mean, and you're exhibiting a certain degree of skill in that, you know, and that skill presumably is not something that just arises in the moment. It's something that you developed over time and embodied.
The skill always arises in the moment.
But is being pulled. I mean, your body knows how to make those various moves, for example.
I have memories of making those various moves. I'm comfortable of making those various moves, but when I'm fencing, I don't think about any of that. The moves emerge into the present moment. It's not like I'm going, oh, my body has a memory of how to do a thrust in sixth.
But it does have that pattern built, maybe not built into is not quite the right word, but you know, I mean, you've trained your body to be able to respond in certain ways in certain situations, right? It's not a matter of pulling it up as a memory, but you're living in something which has historical context, I guess.
Actually, in my personal experience, speaking from a phenomenological point of view, no, not at all. If I were to have to refer to memory at any point within a match, I would lose the match.
But the point is not that you're referring to memory. The point is that your body knows how to do this automatically almost.
Yeah, there's, as far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as body memory. Not for that. There's muscle memory does not exist as far as I can tell. And science seems to agree with me on this.
So what are you doing when you're training yourself to be a good fencer, for example?
I am training myself to be a good fencer, and I'm doing it in the present moment when I'm doing it. Otherwise, I just have memories of doing it.
And how does that training carry over to tomorrow?
I'm not in tomorrow, so I can't answer that question.
How does your yesterday's training carry over to today?
I'm not in yesterday, so I can't answer that question.
Right.
All I can do is stand across from an opponent and stab him through the heart.
But you can do it a hell of a lot better than I can, and that's presumably because of
we don't know that. You've never tried. You might be brilliant at it.
I'm about to try it with you anyway, you know, because I'm pretty damn sure what the result would be, you know. But I mean, the reason presumably that you've done all that training is to carry a certain skill forward.
I have a story in my mind about doing a lot of fencing training over the years,
Right.
but it's just a story in my mind. I
And if I were-
suspect that 90% of any skill that I might exhibit is because I am relaxed and attentive,
Yeah.
as opposed to having trained some particular set, because the sets that one might train never appear in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Still,
I'm
you're
gonna
a damn good fencer,
I'm gonna
and
have
I
to go all
should
Zen
suck
on
at
you
this.
here. I'm pulling the Zen card.
So what makes you such a damn good fencer and make me suck? I mean, presumably it's...
One, I have the killer instinct and you don't.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
When I get across from my opponent, all I see is a target.
Yeah.
And my will is to impose my point upon my opponent.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
And you think if I just develop that, well, I guess I can't talk about developing that will because that would be doing historical stuff. But
Well, be that in the moment. Practice that in the moment and you get it. You can't do it from memory.
I'm not saying you do it from memory.
Yeah, you
I'm
kind
saying
of
that
are.
there's a certain difference between you and that difference is not just the way you come across right now, but that difference is historically developed.
Prove it. Prove it. Show me.
You can't do that.
No, you can't. We have a story that I have trained in fencing a lot. That's all it is.
And
Maybe,
so if I were to make myself say to my, if I were to create this story in my mind that I've been training for 20 years on how to wrap you around the
there's some
sword or
pretty
something.
solid evidence for people training in their mind actually getting better.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But
So
that,
tell yourself the good stories, if that's what you want to do. I'm saying that when the moment happens, any memory I have of training does not matter.
but your training does matter. Not
How
the
do
memory
we
of the training,
know?
but the training.
In that time, there is no training. There's a memory of training, maybe if I put my mind on it, but if I do that, I lose.
So what is it that makes, well, no, I guess you've attempted to answer that question before, but I was going to say, what is it that makes you a good fencer or a swordsman, whatever, and I suck at it. And it seems to me it's not just the attitude I bring to it in the moment, but also my history of training or not training in it.
We don't know because as far as I know, you have never held a sword in your life.
Actually, I did fence a little bit, but anyway, that's the whole point I got to make.
So you have a memory of fencing
at the moment, so I'm going to shut up here and let you continue with your presentation.
That's not a presentation, dude. It's a discussion.
Your talk. Whatever the hell you were doing, and I vaguely remember that that's not in the present moment.
This is what we're doing right now. This is the present moment in which we
I understand, and we're doing a bit of verbal fencing here.
Yes, and as usual, you lose.
Ah, bullshit.
So you say, but what's that sticking in your chest?
Ow, the sword got me. All right.
All right, so other people's thoughts on this.
Okay, I want to argue.
Okay, let's argue, Nancy. I haven't argued with you for a while, so.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm a moderately good calligrapher.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I can, for certain specific sorts of calligraphy, and I know something about how ink behaves in a broad pointed steel pen. I know some alphabets. And if I'm faced with something different, let's say writing an unfamiliar alphabet with a brush, it is much more difficult. It's not as good. And I assume that this is a result of accumulated knowledge about the specific things I've spent time on.
Maybe. But realize that everything you just said is just a memory that you have. The only thing that is real is if you sat down there right now with a pen or a brush and ink and paper and did something. Otherwise, we are just talking about stories.
I think you're excluding all possible evidence against your thesis.
What possible evidence can there be against that thesis if everything in your head is a memory? See, this is what we run into. Everybody really wants to hold on to their memories as if they had some sort of objective reality, and they don't. No one's memory has objective reality. We have a bunch of patterns. I have memories of how to fence. I have memories of how to play the ney. I have memories of how to play the saws. Noor has memories of how to sing. None of those things matter in the moment when you are doing these things. And if you are not doing them, they are just stories.
So I noticed Cherie nodding. Are you ready to say something, Cherie?
Sorry about that. That was something interrupted on one of my devices.
That's
Well,
all right.
I have to agree with Mushtaq on this because my Zen teacher was extremely ruthless with me, and he would just say, stop repeating the story. If you've got nothing to say but your story, conversation ends. I was just like, what? Well, what are we doing now? And he goes, we can just be in this moment. And you just think, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
not surprise.
it's like, yeah, oh, is that it? You know, and then you realize all I'm doing is story. Everything is story. And when I'm playing tennis yesterday, we had this really long rally between the four of us at the net. And as long as we weren't thinking, that ball was still going back and forth really fast, and you had no time to think. And it's like so good. It feels so good not to be thinking. The joy of it, that joy of just being in that moment, I got the ball back. And if you're thinking about strategy and blah, 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 that's when we lost the point. You go, oops. Yeah. Or you're trying to outdo something. And I know one of the other guys is way stronger than all of us. But as long as I could just sit in the moment and just use the timing, it was wonderful. And maybe the differences of lack of conditioning is actually where you get those I will beat you stuff. Yeah, and most of us are pretty level, but that no thinking, stop thinking. And that was just like, wow, that's it. Nothing else. The end.
Yes, that's perfect. And Lawrence is much smarter than I am. So if he says that that's the case, it's pretty much the case. Lawrence being her teacher. So Milton Erickson was invited to train the American Olympic shooting team. Milton Erickson is a hypnotist, hypnotherapist, the father of medical hypnosis. And basically, he observed them and noticed that with each shot, they got more rigid, more stiff, more tense. So he taught them to forget about each shot after they made it and approach each shot as if it was their first shot. To be in the now and be surprised by what happens. To not be ruminating over, oh my God, that last shot was 3/4 of an inch off the center and 1/2 an inch high. How can I come back from that? He taught them to forget about all of that and just make the shot. It happens that they took gold that year, but you know, even if they didn't, it would still be a good practice. You know, my memories of training do me no good in the moment. think
So
go ahead.
I was just going to invite Paylon to speak because I saw her nodding in agreement. Did you want to finish your thought, or would you like Paylon to hop in?
Oh no, Palin, hop in.
I mean, I certainly have experienced the holding on to, I just did something wrong, and then being very, very rigid and being unable to snap out of that and carrying it forward. But I think I can follow both you and Cherie in the sense that, and I think this goes back to the general semantics that you had showed me earlier, where our perceptions are incomplete of reality. And so our memories and the patterns, I mean, learning is in part the patterns changing over time, which is fine, but it's not objective reality, as you were saying. And it seems that in the discussion tonight about this quote unquote higher level of being or higher level of consciousness, it's more of the ability to let go of or transcend the existing patterns, because there's a false belief that the patterns, or rather somehow that the patterns are limiting. That seems to be what we're trying to do.
Can you say that in a slightly different way? I want to make sure I understand it.
It seems that a quote unquote good thing that we're trying to strive for is to be able to not be limited by the patterns that we're currently carrying around.
Yes, that would be a very good thing.
Would you say it's like a detachment from prior outcomes as well?
Yes, because prior outcomes are just part of the story.
Right. Yep.
It can be a very, very useful practice to, how do I describe it? In this moment, imagine that nothing has been created before this moment. And that means every third of a second, the universe recreates itself. Boom, new universe. Blink your eyes, new universe. Take a breath, new universe. And the old universe is gone, never to be retrieved. There is no way that you can touch even 5 minutes ago. It is not possible for us. Now, we all get together and we agree on a bunch of stuff, or we don't. If you don't agree on stuff really, really hard, you are either enlightened or insane. Sometimes both. It's like, we all agree that dishonest Donnie Trump is president of the United States, except those of us who don't agree on that. And think about Emperor Norton. You all know who Emperor Norton is, right? Norton the First, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico.
I don't know if everyone is familiar with
One
that
of
story.
the greatest figures in 19th century American history. Emperor Norton was brilliant. He basically showed up in San Francisco, declared himself emperor. He wrote letters to people like Lincoln and to the heads of state of Europe, and they were seriously considered. He issued his own money. He never had a dime of US money that anybody could ever tell, but he stayed in the best hotels. And when he died, thousands of people turned out for his funeral. He once stopped a riot. All the white boys were going to go down to Chinatown and show those Chinese peoples what for, kick them back to China. And Emperor Norton stopped that riot merely by standing in the middle of the street with his head bowed praying. And nobody would pass him. And yet, by all accounts, he was a homeless bum. Think about that. At some level, he got people to buy into his story rather than everybody's regular story. His story was, I'm the emperor and you cannot hurt my subjects just because you don't like the color of their skin. And he held that strong enough that everybody else had to bend to it. So that's an example of using the story in a really interesting way. Was Emperor Norton crazy? Probably crazy as a loon, but it doesn't matter because it worked for him. And what makes you crazy or not crazy is how much people agree with your story.
And you're still objecting to Trump?
It amuses me. I reject that story. It amuses me to reject that story. That story is not real. That story is lies that we have told ourselves.
But I guess that's one of my concerns about at least the way you're putting what you're saying. I mean, it seems to me true and useful to say that, as Palin would say, rumination about something that happened in the past is usually of no great use, right? That thinking about, trying to remember how to do a particular fencing move in the middle of a fight is of no great use. In fact, it's deleterious. That seems to be quite true and quite worthwhile. And in that sense, being surprised puts me in a state of not knowing, which I think is actually a rather beautiful state to be in. But there's another side of this, which sometimes sounds to me like you're implying, which I would not agree with. And that is that the other side is that there may all be stories, but some stories are true or more likely to be true than other stories, and it's important, I think, to keep that distinction between true stories and alternative facts, and some of what you're saying sounds almost like saying, well, it's all stories, so it doesn't really make a damn bit of difference as to which story.
What I'm saying is that, in fact, it's all stories, so it doesn't make a damn bit of difference.
Right. And I guess
that upsets people a lot. You're experiencing the kind of upset that causes in people because we are all so attached to our stories. Do I need a story of how gravity works? No. Right now, in this moment, I experience gravity. I experience the pull of the gigantic pile of dirt underneath me. I don't need a story about how it works. I can make up stories about how it works if I'm doing math.
Yeah.
But as Einstein pointed out, we can't really ever know.
Yeah. But the reason that you're going to presumably vote for Biden rather than Trump is because there's a story that you believe to be true, which gives you good reason, you believe, for despising Trump. And are you saying that that's...
vote for Biden instead of Trump, assuming that I do when that moment comes? It's not here. At this moment, if there were an election right now, I would vote for Biden, and I would do it because that's what I want to do.
And that wanting has no history to it?
Why would it need a history to it? I mean, I could make shit up.
Right. Because I think it's dangerous to just make shit up and act upon that shit.
People do it all the time.
I know they do it all the time. And I think we're in a mess because people do it all the time.
Yes. So stop doing it. Dude, stop doing it.
Stop advocating it.
I'm not. I'm advocating that you stop doing it. Stop making stuff up.
And I'm advocating that there's some stuff that some of your stories are truer than others, you know. And it's important.
No, maybe some of your stories are truer than others. But I'm pretty sure that none of my stories are truer than any others.
You know, I want to say bullshit on that, but
Well, you can't say
I'll take
bullshit on that because you're not in my experience, dude. I mean, yes, you love your stories. They're important to you. You can have them.
And I've heard you loving a lot of your stories. I mean, you know,
I tell stories. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. But in the moment is what matters to me. I don't need to tell stories about Noor and my history because when we're sitting in a room together, there's us.
Sure.
And we both know that there's the us. We don't need the history. You may not like it. It may be uncomfortable to you. It may feel weird. And the fact of the matter is that all of that content in your head is virtually meaningless, except that it keeps you doing the things that you have always done and having the things that you have always had, which you will continue to do until you let that stuff go. Then you can be surprised at what you might be able to do. I'm constantly surprised when I'm fencing. It's like, holy crap, how did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I try and stay away from that other stuff.
Yeah. And I guess it seems to me both of those are quite consistent with each other. The both being, on the one hand, being able to act in the present moment without having to pull up memories or thoughts or anything of that sort of stories. And the other thing that I think is also true is that some stories are true and other stories are not true.
No stories are true. No stories are true.
All right,
Find one story that you can get any kind of objective verification on. Some stories may be more useful than others under certain circumstances, but no story is true. It's a story.
Right. But part of our, in a sense, almost, I guess I want to say the history of our civilization, is learning to discriminate between stories which are more likely to be true and consequently more likely to lead to useful actions than others.
And you're welcome to have that, and it's false.
Okay. But the fact that you're saying it's false means it presumably says that there are other things which are true, right?
Yeah, what's true is that no story is true. That's true.
And that's true. You'll stick with that one through the end. Okay.
Yep, pretty much. You know, when you can prove to me the objective truth of a story, any story, I might consider it. But you can't. You won't. It will not happen. Everything that is in your past is untouchable by you and just remains in your head as stories that you tell yourself. Stop telling yourself the stories and you get to be surprised. Not knowing is not telling yourself the stories.
I have no disagreement with that, but I do have disagreement with the implication that no story, I mean, that stories are all essentially all the same. You know, it doesn't matter whether they're true or not. You know?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Tell me what matters about what you had for breakfast yesterday.
Not a damn thing. Well, I don't know. I mean, I could have a tummy ache out of it, but there are other things where it does matter. You know,
like what? Name 3 things.
Well, for example, Trump's tax returns, as we just found out tonight. You know,
that just adds to another story to the narrative.
That's true. But the fact that that narrative to some degree is a true narrative.
How do we know that it's a true narrative?
Yeah, I know. That's the point of the debate here. So,
you keep using that word true, and you're not using it correctly because.
All right. Tell me the correct usage of true. Then.
The correct usage of true is that which you cannot disprove.
That which you cannot.
Or as
that means just tautologies, right? That's about the only thing that's true then for you, right? 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah, or the old saying, that which when you stop believing in it remains.
Right. Now that I think is a more useful one, you know.
But it's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Come on, this way it's not. Let's have a fight.
May I come in with a different example?
Of course.
Okay, my spatial sense is not completely reliable. So I occasionally get lost in my own neighborhood. You know, I'm surprised. I walk the amount that would usually get myself home, but I'm not there. You know, and then I have to get the streets sorted out. Eventually, I obviously get home. But this is a case where the story I keep telling myself about which street is connected to which street and how can I tell is actually very valuable.
So use it. But you notice that it's the story. What's real is what is happening to you right then when you're standing on the corner going, what, where?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a more enlightened state.
Maybe not. Maybe for you it's not. Maybe for you it actually is, but you haven't taken the time to notice that when you don't know where you are, everything is possible. What I'm suggesting is that you can find that moment where you are surprised, when you are going, oh, the stories don't matter. And hold on to it and use it to keep you right now. The reason that people get so upset about this is because all of those stories create the entire false world that we live in. All of those stories tell us all of the things that people have done to us, good and bad, who we are, what we are, and all of that kind of stuff. And yet you can exist without any of them.
So we have a comment from Mustaqim, and Cherie has also unmuted herself.
Okay, let's do Mustaqim first because he's been sitting quietly waiting for us.
Sure, he says, I don't know if this has been asked, but to use the past experience to learn for the better future, is that a good reason to keep any stories?
It's as good a reason as any. I'm not saying that stories aren't useful. I'm saying that they aren't real.
I think that's what trips people up. They're thinking, well, if it's not real, then don't they have any value at all? And they can be tools. I guess that's one way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's stories all the way down, except for in the present moment. All the way up and all the way down, except for the present moment. But you can still utilize those stories as tools. When we get stuck in them, we've left the present moment and we're wrapped up in the tools, in the stories.
Yeah, so you all know Einstein's little paradox with gravity, right? It's like this. If I'm in a closed room, I cannot tell by any means available to me, by any measurement that I can do, whether I am accelerating through space or sitting on a planet under the influence of gravity. Can't do it. I can tell myself a story about, oh, I'm sitting on a planet. I'm in this room. I can't see outside. I can't see the stars. I'm in this room and I'm going to tell myself a story that I'm sitting on planet Earth, where the terminal velocity for a falling body is 32 feet per second, and gravity is pulling on me at this much. I could, however, be in a room accelerating at a constant rate through space that is producing the same exact effect. And there is no way to know if my story is true or not. Now, yes, you can look outside the room and see if you're in space. But from inside the story, You know, what I'm inviting you to do is look outside the room. You're telling yourself a story about who you are and where you are, and you don't have to.
That point there is very powerful, because we're kind of mixing up two different things, I feel, where it all comes down to that identification to a story and an experience, or a series of experiences. So people, like, I'll just use myself as an example, like, so I'm Asian, so I must be smart, or something ridiculous like that, you know, and you just think, no, that's not my worldview. And so if I've had a horrible experience in my relationships or something, if I had been attacked, and I look through life through that story every day, I have poisoned my present moment.
Yes.
Yep.
So don't do that. You know, so it's just like, right now, this is the moment. This is the moment. It's a series of moments. You're just moving through those moments. You're not staying in that one spot and say, okay, that was it. That's the end. So the story, the hardest thing is to let go of the story. And so my teacher would say to people in a workshop or to me, and he would say that, who are you without all the labels? So that label is a story. So if you're saying, I'm a poor white person, or I grew up with refugee parents, or I didn't get a good education, so I can only be this. That's just a story. Who cares? Exactly what Mushtaq said. It's, who cares? Who cares about that? You're caring about that because you put value on that. But if you can let that go and say, I'm not a mother, I'm not a sister, I'm not a this or that or anything, who are you without all of the story? Who are you in this present moment? And are you using that present moment to be the best human you can be? So the stories are tools, really. As Mushtaq says, as a storyteller, you use those tools to help you be more present and realize your attachments and let them go. Those attachments to story are the things that anchor you from being in the present.
Right, and other people will try to do the same to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to accept that.
Exactly.
That's another thing, that we get taught that you are this or you are that, or you went to this school, so you must be that.
Mm-hmm.
No. If I want to talk about me, I say nothing.
Right. Yep.
You still love me, no, if I say nothing? That's what it comes down to, isn't it? We all want to be loved. So we say all these different things. Will it attract people? Will they approve of me? Will I be able to blah, 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 blah? It's just blah. So the directive to me was, stop repeating the story. And it's just so freaky, because when that surprise, like, don't repeat the story? What? So what do I say?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we end up when we hit that wall. Yeah.
And that's the thing. We hold our universe, our personal universe together by the stories that we tell ourselves.
So Ilmar has a good quote, right? I can't remember what this is from.
That's a Zen book.
Yeah. Show me your original face, the face you had before your father and mother were born. Yeah. I think that's relevant to this discussion. Yeah.
And my spin on that quote would be, show me your face when you're not telling yourself stories about who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Who are you without the stories that you tell yourself to hold your universe in the shape that it has always been in for you? And that's terrifying to people.
Mm-hmm.
It is utterly terrifying to face that void of, oh, I do not have this story to define myself. I do not have this story to tell anybody who I am. I don't have this story to tell you what I can do or can't do. Who are you right now if you stop telling yourself the story and just abide in this moment?
I have a question, because
Yes.
it seems like for the newbies to this concept, that we are being asked to fundamentally change our relationship with our memories. Would you agree with that statement?
I would. I would.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly, I think that's uncomfortable. At least I'm
Oh, it's
experiencing
horribly
discomfort
uncomfortable. It's horribly uncomfortable.
because I don't have a different,
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that brand new to a person. So like, however old a person is when they first hear this concept, it's surprising
The
to the
older
point
you
where
are, the harder it is to get through this as a rule. But I'm telling you that no memory you have has any objective existence.
that part I get.
Yeah. If you got hit in the head with a hammer, some of your memories would disappear forever, in all probability, never to come back. Does this make you a different person or the same person without those memories?
I imagine a different person.
I don't. I imagine the same person, not the same persona,
Hmm.
but the same I. And I personally love the experience of when I can just sit and let go of all of the stories, um, including the ones that I use to navigate the universe. Because they're just stories, they are not real. Whatever might have happened to me, whatever I can remember happened to me a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it's just a construct in my mind. If I have any skills from that, I don't know. My skill has to manifest in the present moment. It can't manifest in memory. And if I'm trying to remember the skill, it can't manifest. Think about that. If you try to remember a skill that you have and do that at the same time, the skill will not manifest. The memory will get in the way of it. And this is true for everything from sword fencing to flower arranging to calligraphy to anything.
This reminds me of the fact that we sometimes get hung up when we look back and go, I should have done this or that. But when you really look at it, in that moment, you made the best choice you could have made in that moment. And then when time goes forward and you look back, yeah, it wasn't a great choice, but it was the only choice you could have made. So if you could have made a better choice, you would have. So you can't keep beating yourself up over it. And so my Tibetan friend, he always made us laugh when he would look at us spinning out on something and he goes, not even real. Not even real. What are you doing that for? Not even real. It's just your mind.
Yep. I'll give you one that's even deeper than that. Back when I used to do therapy, I would occasionally run across somebody who I was working with who would have something in their past that they felt like they should have done differently. And they just couldn't let go of that. So I would put them in a trance and regress them back to that point but I would have them take their older self with them on that regression and have their older self help their younger self do it differently, and then bring them forward. And you know what? That made a change, because it changed the memory. Now that freaks people out. When you say, oh, I just helped them change their memory, you go, oh my God, but then it's not real. But you know what? If the first memory wasn't real either, why not have a better one? Why not have one that gives you a resource in this time? Consider that. That's how ephemeral memory really is. You can go in and change them. So it is useful to be surprised, to let yourself be in a state of not knowing, because that's what surprise is. Oh my God, I didn't expect this. Novelty. We crave novelty at a certain level. And the classic example is the old, roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. There is zero novelty in that communication. Right? Y'all knew what was coming. Nothing was new. I can go, roses are red, violets are blue. You think this is gonna rhyme, but it ain't gonna. There's a little bit more novelty in that. There's a little surprise. Oh my God, here I am. I'm not remembering what I think is gonna happen next. I'm surprised. Or I could go, roses are red, dragons are black. You don't know it, but there's a spider on your back. Right? None of it's real, but it all creates effect. And when it's novel, it creates more effect if you can let yourself be there. So my message to everybody is embrace surprise. Be willing for the universe that you are forcing into existence with your memory to not have to be there. Give it a vacation. Let your memory have a vacation. You can call things up when it's useful. But remember, even when you remember something, you are remembering it in the now. When I remember how to tie a top line hitch, right? I'm sitting there and I visualize a cord and I go, this here, this here, this here. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't happen in the past. That is a recreation in the now. It's the only place that really matters. So in this moment, all of us are telling ourselves, often at some subliminal level, that the stories that are keeping our reality nice and tight for us. Right? Think about the stories that you're telling yourself right now, right this very instant. What are they? Except for Cherie, she's not telling herself any stories right now. You can tell by the glow, Cherie. Mustaqim, what stories are you telling yourself right now that are holding your universe together for you? Take your time. No rush. I can wait. While Mustaqim is thinking about that, How about you, Paylan? What stories are you telling yourself right now that are keeping the universe together for you?
I am remembering various things that I wish I had done differently, just as Shuri was talking about. But you mentioned the way you just said that reminds me of this concept of the shape of space, which is like the memories that we hold kind of define, when you said the memories hold the universe, our universe, personal universe together. But it's interesting that they're often the shape of that universe, depending on the meaning that we give to our memories.
Yep. A salient observation. Cherie, can you think of any stories that you're using to hold your universe together right now? Got to turn your mic on.
Okay. I went to the bookcase to see if there's a book there that I had by Paul Arden. I don't, but it was called Whatever You Think the Opposite. And that has been one of the helpful things, that as I'm doing something and I'm beholden to a certain technique, I made a whole group of people laugh on Zoom just before this Zoom, we were doing hamstring stretches. And so normally you'd raise your leg up on a chair or something and you'd lean forward to that foot. Well, I said, no, don't do that. Lean down and try and touch the other foot on the floor. And they just laughed and laughed and thought that was the silliest thing. And it's not a new thing, but they're so beholden into, they've got to be standing, trying to reach that foot, even though the leg's bent and all that sort of thing and blah, blah, blah. But I had to shake it up. And I said, no, not that leg. Reach the other leg on the floor. And I thought, what? So that's where the surprise is. And I've been teaching these little flows to move from one exercise to another. But I said, what if we reverse engineer and pretend that we're doing a rewind of a film? So we've got to do everything backwards. Oh my God, that was so much fun. So it always amuses me to be able to try and remember to do something completely opposite. I can get stuck in a groove and say, okay, it has to be done like this, or I should be letting go of this and doing that. Do the opposite and you'll be surprised. And it just opens up a whole new way of being. It's so lovely. So that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, is whatever it is that I was focused on, reverse it.
That's interesting. That reminded me of something. That gave me a memory. So here's my memory, which is when I teach people how to change levels, which means here you are and you're high and you want to drop really low. So changing levels down. Most people think they have to do it by pulling themselves to the ground.
So you mean physical? I just
Yeah,
wanted to make sure we're talking.
physical actually changing levels.
Okay.
Like if I'm doing, it's called a pasada de soto, a low pass, a low thrust, where you're going very, very low to thrust underneath your opponent's sword. Everybody thinks that you have to pull yourself to the ground, but the way to actually do it and do it faster than anybody else is that you pull both feet away from the ground at the same time. And you drop like a rock, boom. And the way to teach that is you have them pick up one foot. So they're standing on one leg and say, okay, now pick up the other leg. Put it next to the first one. And most people freak out. Paylan will freak out, even though I'm telling her this, she's going to freak out. And so there's a memory. It's entirely unreal. It's just this thing in my head, but it's one that amuses me. And I can even imagine a memory of this one student who could not get it until the moment when they did, and the look on their face when they realized that they had just dropped to the lowest level that they could stand at faster than they had ever done before. So fast that they almost got a nosebleed. Now that I've thought of that, I go, that's just a story. Not real, not in this moment. I'm not doing that now. This is not happening now. It's just a memory in my head. Nancy, tell us things. You are wise?
Well, one of the things, well, the most recent story was actually noticing how quickly a card can be swiped. Because, you know, I was at the drugstore and I needed help with the goddamn automated checkout. I just realized I don't have to be as careful with cards as I usually am. But of course, that is a memory.
Yeah. And it could be a useful memory. The next time you're in the store, you might remember that and go, oh, let me try it this way.
Yeah, and the other thing, you know, I'm a person who does Qigong. You know, I've been doing some energy flows. Which, you know, I don't know. It's an identity thing. It's
Yeah, so can you remember doing Qigong?
yeah.
Are you doing it now?
More like paying attention to some stuff I'm feeling, but yeah.
Yeah. So you're not doing it now, but you are remembering it.
Mm-hmm.
The memory is not real, even if it's there.
Right. Okay, so I'm doing it now.
Yeah. All right, Mustaqim, you ran away. He might have had to do stuff at work, so I'm not going to hassle him too much. Who else do we got? We got Noor.
There he is. Yep.
There he is.
Sorry, there's neighbors come.
Oh, no worries. So, what do you got? Tell us a memory that holds your universe together.
What do you mean with the?
I'm sorry, your voice just disappeared.
Sorry, what do you mean with holding my universe together?
One of the things that you tell yourself all the time to reinforce what the universe is. Like, I'm married, or I have a child, or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's one of them. That I'm human. Something like that.
All good. I occasionally remember that I'm human, and then I remember that that's not real. So Ilmar, what do you got for us? You get the last word. I know you love having the last word, so I set it up that way.
Well, bless you. as far as a memory that holds my world together, I guess one of those is that you just asked me a question, and consequently that this is part of a dialogue, and that I can respond to that. Otherwise, I would just be blurbering away without any particular direction at all. But the other thing that, you know, as far as the last remark is, I mean, I completely agree with the value of what you're proposing as a practice, namely being able to be just in a state of not knowing and in the present moment. I think a lot of what I object to is your rather idiosyncratic use of the word real, and say that anything which is not at the moment of present experience is not real, and consequently any story about anything other than the present moment is all false.
I will give you that.
False, that's the right word. You know, that there's no distinction to be made between what we would normally call true stories and false stories. Now that, I don't think you need to push that, except maybe for theatrical purposes to get us all excited. But the practice, I think, is very valuable. That particular technique of saying, well, it's not real, I find misleading and potentially dangerous.
Bye, Cherie.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, that would be you.
It is me.
And
that's why I'm talking to you.
yeah, and I have a different perspective.
Gotcha.
And my perspective doesn't have to hold on to all of this stuff. I will concede your point, though, if you can show me 5 minutes ago.
Why would that be the test of this?
Because then, if you can show me 5 minutes ago right now, then 5 minutes ago has to be real. If you can't show me 5 minutes ago, there is no 5 minutes ago. You can't get to it.
And that's because your definition of real is what's present in the present moment.
Yes.
5 minutes ago is not in the present moment. So
exactly. So what's real is right now.
Yeah, by your definition of real. And I'm willing to take that, you know.
And my definition of real is the real definition of real.
All right.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord, indeed.
Two philosophers in the same room.
Yeah.
Dangerous. We're lucky we don't have swords.
Wouldn't that be kind of fun? That would make things really real.
Yes, it would. There is nothing more impelling than the point of your opponent's rapier.
Indeed, indeed. Except for your wild wit, right? As you try to skewer us with your definition of real.
Well, I have yet to ever have anybody show me anything that was not in the present moment that actually existed. So.
So anyway, I mean, that's all I have to say.
I have thrown down the gauntlet to you, dude.
You have indeed. And if we had another hour or two, we would be playing with that gauntlet and seeing where it takes us. But I think that's probably not something that's going to happen this evening.
Nope, because we do have to I got to make dinner, so.
So to wrap up, I want to make sure that we touch back on this. In terms of its relationship to awakening, how does surprise fit in?
Surprise gets you to the doorway of awakening. Surprise is that moment when you can awaken. If you let go of your story, of your past, of all of the things that you think that you are, if you can let those go in that moment, you wake up. And surprise is one of the best ways to get there because it breaks your pattern. You think all the time to keep your universe together. You are constantly narrating your reality. And most of the time, nothing surprises you. Roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. But every now and again, something comes along and it's roses are red, violets are blue, your house is on fire, and so is your shoe. And that's a little bit different. And in that moment, you go, what? In hypnosis, they call that a pattern interruption. And we all need them to break out of that constant, dull, grinding narrative that we carry in the back of our heads about who we are and what happened to us and all of this stuff. All of that is the anchor that keeps us mired in samsara, for lack of a better term. And it just takes a bit of surprise, whoa, to go, oh, here I am.
And this includes, yeah, I think this is good. I think this is a good way to harken back to where we began and you know, there's something to be said about loosening our grip, our little talons, our little claws, that we sink into what we expect to happen. And this is where pattern shifts or pattern breaks come in handy, because they give us an instance of perceiving what it's like to have those expectations crumble. But what happens when we intentionally release the expectations?
Then life gets interesting.
Exactly.
What happened to you, Nor, the first time you ever released those expectations? Can you remember that? It was a while ago.
I freaked out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I freaked out. I started questioning a lot of assumptions I made about my own identity. I almost felt, you know, on some level, I knew that I was not falling into the abyss, but there definitely was this sensation of that. And when I pushed myself into kind of magnifying that feeling, it was like, wow, none of this. I'm perceiving things, but I realize on another level that none of those things are true, none of those things are real. They're just what I like to call functional fictions, which are only functional to varying degrees, really. And sometimes I have to make use of them in the context of other people's stories in order to interact with them. But I understand simultaneously that those things are not true.
And that brings an interesting thing. Now, Noor and I can sit together for very long amounts of time and not need to tell each other stories, which probably seems rather weird to people on the outside, because we aren't saying anything to each other. We might have each other's undivided attention, but we're not telling each other stories. We're just there. But with people who are in love with their stories, the only way you can communicate to them most of the time is through stories. So you learn to tell stories. I tell stories all the time. Some of them are amusing. Some of them are happy. Some of them are sad. Some of them bring you to enlightenment. Some of them bring you to endarkenment. But there is never a moment when I forget that those are just stories and they aren't real. But if somebody is mired in the need to hold their universe together through reaccounting stories about themselves and the world, sometimes that's the only way you can get their attention, is slip a story in there. So that's pretty much all I've got to say.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that we're going to return to this in the future. I'm gonna, you know, elaborate more on my experiences in the future, I'm sure, and some of you may have similar experiences or not. Maybe you haven't hit that yet, but
I think you should, because frankly,
yeah.
you probably will address this in a much nicer way than me. I'm just used to going, oh, nobody's going to hear this. I'm going to rattle people's cages until they get some idea that they're, be surprised.
He's a cage rattler, this one.
What can I say?
Yep. So that's what we got. Be surprised.
Be surprised.
Yeah.
And the best way to be surprised is to stop telling yourself stories about how everything is. Who knows? Maybe gravity won't work one day. That would be surprising.
It would be very surprising.
All right. Any last thoughts? Because otherwise, I'm going to shut this thing down so that we can all go home and do things. Like eat. Nope.
Nope.
Well,
Well, as always, it's great to see you guys. I'm glad you guys made it tonight. And it's been fun watching the sparks fly a little bit. And I look forward to next week.
as do I. So take care, folks. And I'm going to shut down the recording now.